Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sherry.
And together, we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today, Sherry and I are going to take you on a walking tour of the City of Rhodes on the island of Rhodes. Rhodes has been populated for at least 3,500 years, and we'll worry about the history and I do the ancient section. But today we're going to take kind of a walk through the city, and then at the end there'll be a little teaser for the different sections, because this is such a large expanse and so historical that it's going to take about 4 or 5 shows to actually cover the whole area. The day is the walkthrough, then we'll probably do the ancient city, talk about the Colossus of Rhodes, then the palace of the Grandmaster of the Knights of Rhodes, and the fortifications, and then some of the museums. So on this show, number 58 in the Traveling Professor series, we're going to take a walking tour of the City of Rhodes. To get to Rhodes, which is located down here off the coast of Turkey, we flew out of Athens. We will then end up flying into the airport of Rhodes, which is outside the main city. And we'll be spending actually all of our time up here in the City of Rhodes. Rhodes has lots of other things to see, particularly the wonderful Acropolis of Lindros, the Butterfly Valley, and you can spend the whole week here pretty easily, but we're going to spend 3 days in Rhodes. We'll be staying in the old city as well. So we go out to the airport by our trusty bus from downtown Athens. We're going to be flying Olympic, which is now Aegean Air, and we have to go out, take a bus out to the plane and board it. And there's the airport off to the side as we're taxiing to take off, and there's basically another version of the same plane that we have. And we take off, and it's a beautiful day, and you can see looking out the window as we fly over various islands just how crystal clear the air is. It's not a very long flight. I think it's about an hour flight from Athens to the Rhodes airport. Here we are flying into the airport region. So here it is, right along the coast. And as we come in for a landing, you can see there's the people down on the beach, and there's all kinds of other things to do. And if we had flown over the whole city, this is what you would have seen. The city of Rhodes today has a population of about 33,000 people. This includes the old city, which you see in its old fortifications from the 1500s, and then the sprawl outwards. However, in ancient times, the population of Rhodes, the city area, was around 100,000. It was a much bigger expanse, as you'll see when we do some of the other shows on the ancient aspects of it. So let's head off to our hotel. Sherry and I will be staying in Old Town around this area here where you see the trees. And most of the major hotels are actually off the screen, more towards the harbor area and the other regions on the left-hand side. The place is called the Knights of Old Town, and it's kind of a house that's converted apartments, rental rooms, and what have you. So we don't have a staff that's there all the time. They have people that come in periodically. They, of course, provided transportation for us. They picked us up at the airport, brought us in because you really need a little help in order to find the place in this myriad of all these small little roads, most of which you can't drive on anyway. Now, on this map, which is the street map of Rhodes, we are located approximately right here. And so what we'll be doing today is we will be taking a lap around the section of the city from wall to wall on the inside. And here is the exterior of the Knights of Old Town apartments. We had they called it a suite, which was, I think it was $109 a night. It was really 2 rooms, one regular bedroom, double, and then another room that you could get to from the balcony that had a single bed in it and a little refrigerator. So we went through the doors here, went up the stairs, talked to the owner, and then he took us up to our room. Now, actually, both of these doors are our room. So this is the door to the main bedroom, and this is the door to the other one. And you see, it's just a simple, it's nothing luxurious whatsoever. Sherry joked about the little covering over the top of the bed here, but it was comfortable. Here's a view back, our closet area, the television, which we never use, and, of course, the bathroom. And then you walk out onto the balcony. So here we have one side of it. And then when I walked over to that side, you could see the 2 doors over here. And then entering into this door on the left-hand side, we get to our little side room, which is actually where we put our suitcases and odds and end things. And we had a separate key for it as well. and then a little refrigerator. And then when you go back out onto the balcony, this is the view that we had. So from here you could see the grand palace of the Grandmaster of the Knights of Rhodes. You could also see the Suleiman Mosque, which was built after Suleiman captured the city in the 1500s. Well, before we start exploring, we need to get something to eat. And when we came in to the Acadian Gate, there were several restaurants located near there, which is this region right in here. Since we were located here, we were going to have to find our way on how to wiggle our way around to get over there. Here we are leaving the Knights of the Old Town. We walk down a little street. This is pretty typical of the streets in the Old Town section. Go down through here. Looks like we're going to come to a dead end, but it doesn't dead end. There's a little opening here. You turn left, and then you come onto the little park area. And they have lots of cats, so we brought cat food with us, and pretty soon we had a whole herd of cats following us. And then we walk through the park, get to the main road through the middle of it, and there's the Acadian Gate. And so we walk that direction, and there are several restaurants. We chose this one, which is Lacunas. The gentleman there, an older gentleman, welcomed us in. He welcomed us, and we came in and had a nice sit down. There's the gate, the Acadian Gate. Actually, we had come in through that gate. We had the specialty, which was the fish plate. This was 10 euros, and Sherry and I loved this. We ate this frequently, and we ate all the time here. Here is the gentleman, our waiter, who had been working for this company for something like 15 or 16 years. He would come in and work the season, and then go back home to the other island. So we made good friends with him, and we usually had lunch there, and we always had dinner there. And of course, we also made friends with the local cats. And so the cat came up, and he referred to her as Grandmama. This was the old cat in the area, and this was one of her kittens that had grown up. And the two of them usually worked in it as a team. And so once we sat down and we fed them a little bit, they were our friends, so they sat in our laps. And anytime we came to the restaurant, they came over and sat right next to us. So they figured us out pretty quickly. So we've now found a place to eat, a place to sit and watch the people go by, have cats to play with, and a wonderful waiter. What more can you ask for? Well, let's begin our walking tour of the inside of the City of Rhodes, the Old Town. Now we'll start from where we are located in our restaurant, which is right here. And this first leg, we're going to head down to one of the main gates. And so we'll be looking at everything along this path. These roads twist, and they're smaller roads, and so the arrows aren't going to match up too well. So we're just walking down that street that went through the park. Okay, keep on heading along here. Start running into some more buildings. And then we come to part of the wall, which ends up being a parking lot. But off here to the right-hand side is one of the local churches. And this is the local church that Sherry and I attended when we went to church that Sunday. Then leaving there, we continued walking along the seawall fortification to our next building, called the Hospice of St. Catherine. This is what it looked like before they started restoring it. Now, it was originally built in the 14th century to provide accommodations for pilgrims that were of noble origin, because a lot of people who were going to the Holy Land came to Rhodes and then went to Cyprus and then went to the Holy Land. Well, then years later, in the 1500s, this was then reconstructed, and the building that you see here is actually more of a 16th century reconstruction. But it has the basic medieval exterior to it, as well as on the interior. They have a mosaic floor and what have you. Now we start coming into the shops area, and as you can see, Sherry has found a nice mule that's not going to run away, so we have to take our mule picture. Then we come to a little damaged church. Now this is called the Church of Our Lady of Bagram, and it was built by the Knights of the hospital. I should say the Knights of Rhodes now. I'll talk about how the name changes over the years when I do the Grandmaster's Palace. The original area of the sanctuary, there's just a few of the walls left. It has 3 aisles that's approximately 30 meters long and about 15 meters wide. And you can see it's not a very large church, very small local church. That's looking towards the main altar, and then that's looking to the back of the church. And here's one of the side sections, probably would have been a side chapel. And then you're looking another direction towards the building where it had a little porch on it. And then this is looking back out to the main street. We leave the Church of the Virgin, and now we start getting into this serious shopping area. See this little square that we're coming into. And we still have some narrow passageways to go by. You can see the buttresses that they use to help support the walls. And then we get into this main area where you have lots of restaurants and lots of shopping and all sorts of things that in here, plus this beautiful fountain. But we are right by the main gate coming into the city. Now our next section here, we're going to walk from the main gate where we're at right here. We're going to go up this direction, and then we're going to take the Street of the Knights and go right up to the Palace of the Grandmaster of the Knights of Rhodes. So here we are getting ready to go out of the gate to get out on the seaside and get a good look at what it looks like from the other end. So here we are on the outside looking into the great fortifications out here. Now the sea walls are not as thick as the land walls because they can defend the sea area a little easier because it's harder for the enemy to use cannons on the ships at this time, and they also have the harbor blocked with a chain. So you go up a couple of streets and then you come to one of the museums, and then you turn, and this is what is known as the Street of the Knights, or the Inns of the Tongues, because each area has a set of, there's Spanish knights, French knights, English knights. Each one of them has their own little inn. Look at the road. A little closer view of the road. It's pebbles locked together in concrete. Now some parts of this type of construction in the city date back to the Byzantine era. You really get your money's worth when you put this stuff in, because the rocks are in many cases turned on their side, which makes it really difficult to walk barefoot. Here's a little closer view of those pebbles being locked together. Then you go up to the top of the street. There we keep walking by the various Inns of the Tongues. We have a little entry area here, and then on the other side of it is the entrance to the Palace of the Grandmaster of the Knights of Rhodes. And then here's an aerial view of the fortress, which is connected to the wall defenses as well. And inside of it are all the rooms in it have different types of art, some of the most incredible mosaics that you could ever see. And they have a display of armaments and all sorts of equipment. After leaving the palace, it's time to head back to our hotel room. We're going to try something that didn't quite work out as I had hoped. The idea was to go from the palace around these walls and get back to where we started. Well, there are a lot of places where there isn't a real road. And so you make a change, and then you go into this alley and then that alley, and then you try to get back, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It took a while to wiggle everything around, but ultimately we got back to the original entry gate where our restaurant was, and then we get back to our hotel. So that worked out okay. We had fun doing that. And here's some of the pictures. Now we're right along the back wall at this point, so you can see they still have they use it to help hold up buildings while they're under construction. And again, it still has the pebble roads, whole street of buttresses here, which is this is actually one of the most photographed sections of the city to show this architectural material. And then we get back to part of the park from another side, and that finally leads us to our restaurant, which lets us get back to our room at the Knights of Rhodes. And you can see it's a little later, the day has changed, the lighting on the building is a little bit different. Unfortunately, we had a key to get in the front door because the door was shut. At the beginning of this show, I promised you some teasers over some of the different places that we would be visiting in Rhodes besides our walk through the city. So here's the first one. It's going to be the Moat and the fortifications, the great defenses. Now you'll notice on this map, you see the magnificent fortifications constructed by the Knights of Rhodes. You can walk through the entire thing. You can actually walk all the way around it. You can walk across the tops of it only one day a week. And the day we were there to do that, the EU had representatives, and so there were no regular people that could go. But just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, here is the entrance to the moat from the inside of the city, not far from where we were staying. So you go down, you go through this nice little tunnel here, and it takes a little left-hand turn. And you see the light coming in. This would have been a sally port. And then you come right out into the middle of this moat. Now, it's not the kind of moat that you usually think of with a small castle. You see the huge fortifications on the right, and then you see where the enemy would be on the top. And then in order to fight, they need to get down into this moat and try to tunnel under it, or they have to try and get through the main bridges. And there are only a couple of those. So you go down a little bit. Here's one of the main entrances with fortifications. And then you go a little further and look at all the cannonballs. These are leftover cannonballs from the Great Siege. And actually the Knights of Rhodes were forced to surrender because they ran out of cannonballs. And then this is heading towards the main gate near the Palace of the Grandmaster. But I'll give you a complete tour of this both aerially and on the ground level. Another show will be done on the Palace of the Grandmaster, which is located up here on the map, which houses several museums. Here's an aerial view of it. And then once you enter it, this is the main courtyard. So you have all sorts of different rooms with relics and art. And then there's the main staircase that leads up to the second floor. And in one of the rooms, they have this replica of the Lacunas, which the original is in the Vatican, but it was originally carved by a Rhodian sculptor. So they have a replica in one of the rooms, but they have all of these different artistic pieces, tremendous amount of mosaics in the floor as well. And then here's a little aerial view of the courtyard of the Grandmaster. So it's quite an extensive place to visit, which is why it needs its own separate show. Now, this is probably the topic that we're going to be doing next week, and that is the old city, the ancient city of Rhodes. So most of the time, if you mention the word Rhodes, you think of the Colossus. So here is an artistic rendering of the city of ancient Rhodes with the gigantic statue to Apollo as the sun god, Apollo Helios. In this map, you see the shaded in area is the size of the ancient city of Rhodes. And you can see the outline in a smaller section where the medieval city is located. So here's an aerial view over the Acropolis, which has the main temple of Apollo. And here we are on the ground looking at them doing some reconstructive work. Here's an aerial view over the complex of entertainment. There's the chariot racing venue. They have an amphitheater here. They also have one of the oldest schools of rhetoric. And if you go down on the ground, this is what it looks like. This was in existence 400 and some BC. I believe Julius Caesar studied rhetoric here. Marcus Agrippa, possibly Octavian, the future Augustus I. People from all over learned how to speak and debate in this place, and there is still a modern school of rhetoric that uses this facility. So there's quite a bit of this ancient city we need to be talking about, and I will do a comparison between the Statue of Liberty and the Colossus of Rhodes. So Sherry and I hope you enjoyed this show and our teasers. Sherry and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I've been doing podcasting on history for over 15 years. I've got over 4,000 shows, and I've done CDs, which of course can be sent out as USBs. So if you would really like to get more on history for free, then come by my website, as you see here, historyaccordingtobob.com, and see what's there. So thank you very much again.